What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we're going to be performing a Community Day guide for the Gastly Community Day. Now, as you know, if you've been a fan on the channel, I typically don't cover Community Day guides because they tend to be very repetitive, being the exact same thing in a cycle over and over and over again. But I decided to go ahead and cover this one in particular because I honestly think there are going to be some tips and strategies that are very important for you to know about that a lot of people are simply not going to be talking about. So in today's episode, we'll briefly walk through all of the features centered around the Community Day, and then we'll get into the strategy portion. If you do enjoy this episode, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. I'm actually going to go ahead and start with a couple of things going on outside of the actual Community Day itself, and that's going to end up being the special research, the Great Gastly. If you want to participate in this, by all means go for it. You do not have to, though. It's going to be $1. The main benefit of it is probably two different things. We've got the different Stardust that you can get from doing this, and then secondly, you get additional Gastly counters if you are trying to, of course, get yourself that shiny. Am I going to do it? I'm personally going to go ahead and skip out on it, but it's at least worth mentioning. And then there's also a community box that is currently available in this game where you're mainly paying for that elite TM. Is it going to end up being worth it? Right now it costs about $13. So for me, I'm actually going to skip it. But if you are in desperate need of an elite fast TM, you can go ahead and buy that. So now let's go ahead and get into the Community Day specific event itself. It's going to be on July 19th, which is Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. local time, plus 2 additional hours to be able to evolve up to the exclusive move Shadow Punch. And I want to go ahead and mention this because I know someone is furiously typing in the comment section right now. What if I already have a Gengar and I just want to use a TM to get Shadow Punch? Guess what? Unfortunately, you cannot do that. There are only 2 ways to obtain this move. Number 1 is to evolve up to a Gengar during these 8 hours of this Community Day. And then secondly, to use an elite charged TM to be able to TM over to Shadow Punch. But I can promise you there are dozens of Pokemon that are a better option than a Pokemon like this. So now that we have that out of the way, we can get into the very typical type of bonuses that we've seen before. 1/4 egg hatching distance, and if you're doing this, you kind of fall into 2 buckets. I'm personally just going to use my free incubator. 1/4 egg hatching distance is amazing, but if you want to just absolutely cycle through a ton of eggs, by all means, go ahead and get yourself some super incubators because that additional bonus to that, you're going to fly through some eggs. Just make sure you have a star piece on so you can get some of that extra Stardust out of that. But there's unfortunately not that many great Pokemon that are specifically featured in the eggs right now, like no special event or nothing like that. So just go ahead and keep that in mind. 3-hour incense is going to hold higher importance than what it normally does for Community Days because if you are playing from home, you may end up finding yourself in the situation where there's just not a lot of Gastly spawning in your home, which is unfortunate, but that's what this incense is going to end up being for. You can use 2 of these to get it throughout those 6 hours, and that's going to be the play at home edition of this. And as far as the next step, we're going to talk a little bit about CPs. As far as level 30 in the wild is concerned, 100% IV, so the best you can get without a weather boost is this number, so go ahead and keep that in your mind. And then if you were lucky enough to get yourself the weather boost during this event, if you're focusing on it from the raid side, you want to go ahead and look for this CP. So go ahead and keep those 2 numbers in your mind. But anyways, if we go ahead and focus on it from the PvP perspective, you want to go for these CP ranges and make sure that you stay within them. I honestly don't think you're going to have too big of a problem, though, staying under the Ultra once you end up evolving it up to a Gengar because it just barely gets past it by like, 378 as far as the qualifications are concerned. So now that we have that, we've covered anything and everything that's featured specifically during the event. Let's go ahead and get into the strategy portion of it. The first strategy is focusing more on lucky Pokemon during this event. And the reason for that is if you end up getting yourself a Haunter that has been traded, you can evolve up to a Gengar for 0 candy, ladies and gentlemen. That is amazing. So in total, you can go ahead and trade all of your Gastlys with all of your friends, with anyone else that you play with, and then it will only cost 25 candy to evolve up to a Haunter. And then when you go from Haunter to Gengar, it's completely free. So in total, just 25 candy to be able to get up to a Gengar. That's fantastic, saving you 100 candy. I myself have a ton of candy, but I can see how this is going to be something that I'm personally would be very excited about, especially if I was a newer player. Trading is crucial because you can get yourself some Gengars without having to use a lot of candy, which tends to be the thing that holds people back, at least in this case, if you are a new trainer. Definitely let me know in the comment section below if you plan to trade for Luckies. Just as a little bit of an additional tip, if you are focused on PvP, you probably want to skip this because the ideal IVs are a 0, 15, 14, and because of the trade floors with the different friend levels, that's impossible to obtain. So just keep that in the back of your mind. PvP, don't lucky trade or try to trade. And then from the raid side or just getting yourself a Gengar, by all means, do it the cheapest way possible. So beyond that, as far as resources are concerned, I myself am going to opt to hold on to some of these resources and use them for the Go Fest instead. Now, I'm saying that because if you end up using a ton on Gastlys now and you end up with like 2,000 or 3,000 candy, you evolve a couple of them, you are going to use your resources, in my opinion, in the wrong place. If you're not doing Go Fest, by all means, go for it in this particular case. Maybe consider using the nab berries because Gastly can be a little bit tricky. It does the figure 8 pattern, moves around a ton. The nab berry will help keep it on pace for you, just right down the center. That way you can use less Pokeballs to be able to hit that Pokemon. For me in particular, I'm probably going to opt to go ahead and use Pokeballs because once again, I'm going to want to save my better Pokeballs just for that Go Fest event, because there could end up being rare spawns that could be harder to catch. I don't want to end up being stuck with a bunch of Pokeballs trying to catch something like a wild Absol, which is going to have a red ring around it. So that's something to at least recommend to everyone if you are doing the Go Fest event. So beyond that, there's something that's kind of interesting that's worth mentioning. If you are interested in Gengar from the raid side, Shadow Punch is not the ideal moveset, believe it or not. Instead, it's actually going to be Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball, followed by Lick and Shadow Ball. So Lick is an exclusive move that we had in the past. That's a special fast move. So unfortunately, the move Shadow Punch is actually the 5th best combination from a raid perspective as a Ghost/Dark type attacker. That's just the unfortunate truth of this situation. So if you are doing that, maybe opt out of evolving it during community day or the 2 hours after. If you were to ask me for my plan, I'll of course go ahead and give it to you what I kind of plan to do. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So for me personally, if I'm focused on it from the raid side, I'm going to try to get myself a level 30, 100% IV or as close as I possibly can to it, and opt out of evolving it during community day. I'm definitely going to get myself a couple of those Shadow Punches, but they're going to be more or less for show or from the PvP side. That's going to be kind of my main focus because Shadow Punch does very well from the PvP side, not so much from the raid. So basically get one for fun, just have one for show, just so I have it in case I end up needing it or they end up changing the moveset. But I'm focused on it from a PvP perspective, so I wanted to go ahead and point that out to make sure that you know that before you get into this community day. Other than that, some future considerations could be this Mega Gengar. Whenever the Mega Gengar ends up coming out, you may want to go ahead and have yourself the resources ready. So you want to potentially catch as many as you can, but make sure that you have candy left over, you have everything ready. So if you want to unlock a secondary charge move, if you want to be ready for these megas whenever they come in, you've got anything and every ready to go. You're saving yourself some Stardust and everything like that. All I'm saying is it's just probably important to go ahead and keep this Mega Gengar in the back of your mind for a future consideration. But anyways, I would love to know what you think about Gengar on Community Day in the comments section below. Are you excited about it? Do you want to use it from the raid side? Do you want to use it from the PvP side? Anything and everything, let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you next time. Huge shout out to the supporters over at Patreon. If you would like to get exclusive perks, make sure to check out that link in the description, and I will see you next time.